What does the West want? That depends on how far west you go. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
Going beyond the headlines.
Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
The Western View. While Prime Minister Mark Carney and his new cabinet ministers were gathered this week at Meech Lake, the premiers of Canada's westernmost provinces were having a sit-down of their own in Yellowknife. The backdrop for all of this, news stories about a growing desire for Western separation and calls for the new Liberal government in Ottawa to make progress on developing corridors for the West's natural resources. But that doesn't mean all the Western premiers are all on the same page. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith continues to maintain that she is not a separatist, that she wants Alberta to stay in Canada, even though her government will make it easier for citizens of Alberta to move ahead with a referendum on the issue.
I have said that we want a sovereign Alberta within a united Canada. That's what I have said from the beginning. It was my very first bill. And I think, in fact, if Prime Minister Mark Carney acts on the ideas in our communique today, that it would take the wind right out of any effort. The frustration that Alberta has been that it's been a lot easier to do business with our southern neighbor than it's been to do business across the country. And what I've seen since November is a real spirit of esprit de corps among the premiers, talking about how we can help each other, how we can trade with each other, how we can work together to create new economic corridors so we can all get our various products to markets. And if we can find some support from the federal government on that, I think that's all that the people of Alberta have been looking for.
Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe also says he wants his province to remain part of Canada, but has also said he wouldn't prevent a separation referendum from moving ahead in his province. He told news reporters many people in his province feel alienated from their government in Ottawa, but that a solution is more access for Saskatchewan products to the east, west, and north.
This conversation around port-to-port access and really creating access for the European and Asian markets for a significant portion of Canadian goods, access to those European and Asian markets for mine products, for rare earth and critical minerals that are looking at. There's many entities looking at investments throughout northern Canada. The connecting through a corridor of some of our northwest ports with potential ports in Hudson Bay, and how you could build off that core piece of infrastructure to really add to our Arctic security, connecting maybe an Arctic port down the way, or even further connecting that core corridor infrastructure, that port-to-port connection out into areas in eastern Canada as well.
Premier Smith and Moe are both conservatives. The Premier of British Columbia, David Eby, is not. He is a New Democrat. And while he says he wants his province to be the economic engine of the country and speaks to the need for national unity, that doesn't mean he's thrilled with the idea of another Western pipeline project like Northern Gateway.
The goal of the conversation was to say, look, we can all work together in delivering this corridor. I know that Danielle's priority is to get heavy oil to Tidewater. She is very unambiguous about that. My priority is to get BC electricity to as many places as possible to help decarbonize and to drive our economy in British Columbia. Every one of these premiers has their own priorities. And we recognize in this moment, as Canadians, we've got to work together. And we've got to work together in a moment of crisis where we're being directly threatened by the leader of one of the most powerful countries in the world, the most powerful country in the world. And so we're all working together. We're finding ways to cooperate. Premier Smith is able to convince the federal government to build another pipeline through British Columbia or a private proponent. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
Premier Eby was also asked about calls from some premiers that the federal government repeal Bill C-48, what's become known as the West Coast tanker ban. Again, another idea Eby is not embracing.
Well, in British Columbia, we have a pipeline that's publicly owned that was put through over the objections of British Columbia, the Trans Mountain Pipeline, and it is not operating at capacity. If the urgency is to get product to Tidewater, then I would start there with the conversations with the federal government about ensuring that this publicly owned infrastructure is used to its full capacity. And that seems like a great place to start rather than opening up the pristine North Coast to tanker traffic. These are my personal feelings as a Premier of British Columbia. I know that Premier Smith has a different perspective about that, and that's okay. We're going to work together, and we're going to come to the ultimate destination of a stronger, united, sovereign Canada that stands on our own 2 feet, and it will be through difficult discussions around tables like this.
Premier Smith was sitting right next to Premier Eby when he made those remarks, but she was diplomatic and tried to focus on the positive.
Obviously, I'd like to see pipelines built, but we had really constructive conversations about interties built so that we could have electricity coming back and forth from Manitoba all the way through to British Columbia and back again. And when you look at the rail line, there's just such an extraordinary opportunity for all of the provinces to export all of our products out of the Port of Prince Rupert. It already exports 30 million tons a year. I think they have a plan to grow to triple or quintuple that. It is the best access to get all of our products, food and fiber, manufactured goods, to the Asian markets in a way that's faster than the Americans can do.
The next big day on the calendar for the premiers is June 2nd. That's when they will all gather with the new Prime Minister, Mark Carney, in Saskatoon for a First Ministers meeting. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know on News Radio. You can read Barry on his Substack. Welcome back.
Great to be with you again, Rob.
Yeah, so we have a developing story right now, late development in the Trump versus Harvard University story. We're just getting word right now that a U.S. judge has blocked the Trump administration from revoking Harvard University's ability to enroll foreign students. So there was a complaint filed in Boston federal court earlier today with Harvard University calling this revocation a blanket violation of the U.S. Constitution and other federal laws. So everything with that story is up in the air right now. I mean, you went to Harvard. You were an international student at Harvard University. Right. If Trump was president, you wouldn't be allowed to go. If you were already enrolled, you would have to transfer.
Absolutely.
What do you think about what Trump is doing here?
Well, I mean, I titled my Substack, just when you thought they couldn't get any lower. I mean, really, this is just this is an unbelievable overreach by the administration to wanting to dive into the records, attendance, everything said about and by professors, on and on and on. It's just incredible. So they have to fight this on principle. You're taking on Harvard Law School. Good luck to you, because they're going to, I think, have the best advice possible to fight this back. To get that quick temporary restraining order is a very good thing. But of course, I'm thinking of the students. We interview student applicants for Harvard from Canada here, every year. And, I know what it's like for them. They get accepted, then suddenly, whoops, guess what? You won't be able to go. So that's quite a shocking thing. And it is, of course, shocking to Harvard as well. But it's a shot across the bow to all universities in the United States. If they can take Harvard down on this, they can take you down too. So that's pretty bad.
I'll be curious to see what happens. I did a ChatGPT inquiry. How many members of the current U.S. Supreme Court went to Harvard Law School? Four of them, including the Chief Justice, John Roberts, and another one escapes me right now, Kagan, I believe, used to be the dean of Harvard Law School. So it would be interesting if this does go all the way to the United States, United States Supreme Court. What is Trump trying to do here, though? Why is he singling out Harvard here?
All right. Well, this is part of his crosshairs that he's got. He's got them all labeled as woke. He's got them all labeled as anti-Israeli, anti-Semitic. He thinks they're too liberal. He wants to get ICE in there. I believe that his ultimate vision is once he gets his hands on the records of international students or those on visas and so on, I think their vision of happiness will be to break into a classroom and arrest in front of everyone a student. I think that's the vision. They've done it in almost every other sector. They've gone into schools to haul out kids. This would be they'd love to do this because it would just show everyone. So there's a deep vengeance part of this. I'd love to get to the bottom of somebody in the Trump family world got turned down at Harvard. We got to know what happened there, because I believe that this is a personal vengeance. He's targeted them from the beginning. Yes, there were problems with the previous president, and
you were very critical of the leadership at Harvard at the time, Barry, as a alum, right?
Absolutely, she handled it wrong. She had her own problems with regard to the authenticity of some of her academic writing. And you know what? It's a very high standard, very high bar. This new president, I read his letter. A good friend of mine was on a call with him yesterday. He's got a really good handle on this. He's reassuring the students that Harvard's not going to lie down on this one, and it's going to be a very tough fight, but stay tuned, not to panic. That's really what he's getting at here. So I have confidence that this will not go through. They're going to try everything, okay? They'll throw it all at the wall. They've done this on almost, including tariffs. They throw everything at the wall, see what sticks. That's what's happening here.
Okay, we have a couple of minutes left here. I want to ask you about something else, and then we'll talk about Mark Carney and kind of his week after our break. Every year, a news outlet in the United States called Axios teams up with the Harris Poll, and they do what are known as the reputation rankings. Okay, this is all about the trustworthiness or appeal of corporate brands, and all the Elon Musk brands tanked last year, way down. Tesla, SpaceX, X, all of them way down. You're not surprised by that, I don't imagine.
No, I think when the brand is really the founder, CEO, so-called guru, whether it's Amazon, whether it's Tesla, whatever, they take a dive when their CEO takes a dive, or when the administration has targeted them. I mean, Apple was number one last year. It's dropped down now, UPS has jumped up 14. Well, who knew? I guess they're doing the work that Amazon isn't getting. I mean, Microsoft has jumped, though, which is interesting because they've kept out of the crosshairs to a great extent. So it's very interesting what's happening. And I think that it shows that your reputation, the closer you are to an individual who becomes a controversial figure, the more vulnerable you are to having your reputation damaged. And I think that this is a cautionary note for CEOs of all corporations. Be very careful what you're profiling, about yourself. Have you become a target politically? I think this is all part of the Trump mentality. The Trump administration's, they want to be the one voice. They want to be the one telling them what to do, where to go. So, this is the tip of the iceberg of it, but it shows you how volatile that is. I noticed a number of our good clients on there. John Deere is number 11, and they're just behind Apple there. They're a solid brand. They've not got political. They really take care of their reputation. You go to the small town in Western Illinois, and there's the John Deere Museum, and they really understand the nature of their brand promise, and they deliver on it.
Okay, we'll be right back with Barry McLaughlin from TLC, Transformational Leadership Consultants. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know on News Radio. Chief of Staff. He's interviewed several people, but has yet to get an acceptance from anybody. What's going on here?
Well, it's a very unique situation he's in. I mean, he wasn't in opposition. He wasn't even in Parliament. He has no one that has that has an understanding of Parliament that has worked closely with him, in recent times. So he's got to find somebody that not only knows how the machinery works, but is able to handle probably one of the toughest political jobs there is in Canada, and that is Chief of Staff of the Prime Minister, because really they do connect the dots strongly to the Chiefs of Staff of each minister. They really are very dominant in terms of, speaking to the ministers that fall off the wagon of policy and so on, and bringing them back on board. You're a combination of a diplomat, a political strategist, a communications expert. You've got a lot of things going on there. Really hard to get them. And so I can see why he has some challenges here. He has to get it right. He's got to get it right from the beginning. So, when Marco Mendicino is stepping out, because apparently rumors are he wants to run for mayor, and even then,
Mayor
it's
of
probably,
Toronto, Mayor of Toronto.
Yeah, Mayor of Toronto. Yeah. That it's got to be one of the, if you're not prepared for 80-hour plus weeks, then it ain't the job for you. And somebody that has that range of skill sets can go out into the private sector or whatever and
Sure.
receive multiples of that salary out there.
I just find it amazing because it's such a prestigious position. Not that I'm looking for another job, but give me a call, Mark. We can talk. But some of these people, like our household names, Derek Burney was chief of staff to Brian Mulroney. Norman Spector, Hugh Segal, the late Hugh Segal went on to be a senator. David McLaughlin, still around. And then you go into the Chrétien years, like Jean Peltier was there forever with Mr. Chrétien, along with Eddie Goldenberg and
Percy Down.
who could ever forget Nigel Wright and the whole Duffy affair?
But that's another good point, that you're also a political target. You can be hauled before
Yes, you can become a political target. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And once you're there, it may be so-called prestigious, but I think to them to be like, wow, get ready to have every aspect of you sliced and diced in public. That's why it's a very, very onerous job on psychological levels, let alone the physical endurance that's required.
I mean, when you think about it, that's why it was so unusual. Katie Telford under Mr. Trudeau had that job for 10 years, almost 10 years.
Yeah, and I did know her at that time, and she came on board. She was working with him when he was in opposition, leader of the third party. Remind everyone, not even opposition leader, but leader of the Liberal Party. And so she got to work with him then, understood him, was able to deal with him, has good interpersonal communication skills, and she really did the job. I mean, people may not like some of the outcomes, but frankly, hard to blame her for that. And I think that that was just happened to be a very, I think, lucky and fortunate combination of experiences and skill sets that worked really for, Mr. Trudeau's advantage. Here, though, we have different expectations going on today. Are you going to have that strong a PMO? You can see the pushback. Are we going to have a PMO that runs everything? That chief of staff will matter in that decision.
Okay. Have a great weekend. Do something about this weather in Ottawa, will you? The king is coming, for crying out loud.
I'm leaving for Calgary, unfortunately. Otherwise, I'd be here.
Speak soon, Barry. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
GLC, Transformational Leadership Consultants. Be right back on News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Well, he's been minding Ottawa's business all week long. Tom Korski is back with us, the managing editor at Blacklock's Reporter. How are you this week?
I'm well, thank you, Rob.
Well, great to hear from you. Again, we're going to talk about the Canada Pension Plan Investment Board, the people managing our retirement portfolios, the Canada Pension Plan. It's out with its annual report this week. Lots of juicy material in there. What jumped out for you? Very bullish on Tesla.
Isn't that something? They sunk over $1 billion worth of stock in Tesla. Presumably because they don't listen to the radio, Rob, and didn't know that Cabinet has ended the federal rebates, $5,000 electric car rebates nationally, that the government of BC that invented those rebates 14 years ago, they got rid of theirs. On the 15th of May, they announced the suspension. The mothballed electric car battery ventures that have been heavily subsidized. Trump got rid of the mandates, and the industry in our country has said, well, if you're not going to pay the rebates, get rid of the mandates, which we're going to phase out the purchase of new gas or diesel-powered cars by the end of the decade. But don't tell that to the CPP Investment Board, because they're loving everything about the electric car industry, $1 billion in stock, Rob.
Yeah, for them, I mean, this is not so much a Tesla story as it is a climate change story. This is about the fight against climate change,
Absolutely. They've said so. They've testified. Their chief executive, the one and only time he testified in a parliamentary committee, went on and on about climate change and net zero greenhouse gas emissions. Oh, sure, it's all about the climate. Not, when it comes to Tesla stock, not about making the money.
Yeah, it's been a real roller coaster for that stock. I'm watching Tesla trade right now. So far this year, in 2025, the stock is down. It's down about 16%. We've seen protests at Tesla dealerships. We've seen vehicles vandalized, set on fire. Year over year, though, it's rebounded really nicely, and in fact, it's almost doubled. And in the last 5 years, Tom, what are we doing in the news media business? We should have just threw it all into Tesla. It's up 500%. So people have done very well.
I mean, they lost money for years. That's too wild for me. You look at the highs and lows over the last year. This is United States dollars, $480 to $222 a share.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's why I put my money in coffee cans in the backyard. I've probably already said too much.
But you know what? It really is quite something, because the CPPIB, the team that manages what is this vast portfolio. What are assets under management now? $700 and something billion or something like that.
That's right. Headed for $1 trillion by 2031, they say.
Right. It used to be kind of this small team, and it's not that anymore. It continues to grow and grow and grow and become more global. And certainly the people at the very top of the Canada Pension Plan food chain, they're doing very well. For example, John Graham is the president and CEO. Tell us about his compensation package.
He went up by a quarter last year, 24%. He got a equivalent raise of over $1 million, $1.3 million. He now makes $6.3 million. Rob, we cannot find any person in Canada who reports to Parliament, whether public office holder, an employee, Crown Corporation chief, you name it, who makes anything close to John Graham, who's no one's ever heard of, chief executive at the CPP board. My favorite is their chief financial officer. Her name is Christina Fanjoy. Well, good for you, Ms. Fanjoy, chief financial officer. She makes more than 4 times the Prime Minister of Canada, $1.8 million a year. You know they're drinking wine at breakfast time, Rob.
Yeah, they're doing very well. So let's see this here. I have the compensation chart in front of me here. Yeah, John Graham, $6,392,000 total compensation. Christina Fanjoy, this is for 1 year, $1.8 million. Yeah. Maximilian is his name. Maximilian Bagosh, senior managing director, global head of real assets, and head of Europe, almost $3 million. $2,993,000. Let's round it up, call it $3 million. Edwin Cass, senior managing director and chief investment officer, $4,750,000. Andrew Edgell, senior managing director, global head of credit investments, $3,594,000. They are doing very, very well at the CPP investment board.
It's staggering. Everyone curses MPs. They only make $209,000, and they work 52 weeks a year. I've never known an MP who wanted to get reelected who didn't work a 70-hour week. I can just imagine when they're rolling in the chauffeured cars at CPP headquarters.
Yeah. So it's quite something. And as for, if you'll just bear with me, we have a few seconds here. A little further down, they detail what the board members make, because these are the senior executives, and then you have the members of the board and what they were making, and they're making. Where did I see this here? Yeah, here it is. Dean Connor, member of the board of directors, CPPIB, be the chair of the board, $342,000. $342,000 to attend 9 board meetings a year. Tom, not bad, eh? Not bad.
By comparison, by the way, a director of Canadian Pacific Railway makes about $250,000, and they have competitors.
So it ranges from, on the low side, 173,000 to the chair making the most, 342,000. So yes, they're doing quite well.
Work.
However, when we come back, some Canadians not doing so well when it comes to trying to pay the mortgage. New details from the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation were released this week. We'll talk about that next with Tom Korski, the managing editor of Blacklock's Reporter. This is News Radio. Back with Tom Korski, the managing editor of Blacklock's Reporter, with us This is alarming stuff. CMHC released an annual survey this week, does this every year, about mortgage trends in Canada. But what are some of the alarming trends, Tom?
Well, as you mentioned, Rob, a majority now are saying they're struggling to pay their debts. Most unnerving for us was data showing, and this is a dramatic increase from 2024. In 2024, 15% of mortgage borrowers said they were borrowing new funds to pay off old debts. That's typically credit cards charged 19%. This year, it's 22%. That's more than a fifth, almost a quarter of mortgage holders are borrowing new money to pay off old debts. And the survey, this is thousands of mortgage holders across the country.
That's more than 4,000
Absolutely.
People.
14% saying they have skipped payments. This is not a one-off, by the way. All this data, these trends have been confirmed in a separate and completely different report by the Financial Consumer Agency of Canada, which identified these exact same trends. Millions of people are right up against it.
Yeah, right up against it. It's on page 22 of this report because of Tom's report. I went and looked up the report myself. Page 22, CMHC 2025 Mortgage Consumer Survey. This year's survey indicates an increase in consumers who had difficulty maintaining debt payments. Last year it was 42%. This year it's 51%. Difficulty maintaining debt payments, 51%. i.e., more than half. That's what you would put in the headline. More than half of consumers are having difficulty maintaining debt payments, primarily due to economic reasons. This one jumped out for me, Tom. 14% missed a mortgage payment. 14%. Holy cow. That's a big number. It's a huge number, missing a mortgage payment, because if you miss your mortgage payment, that's like the last domino to fall. You're missing a mortgage.
No, absolutely. And you know why they're doing it. Peter Routledge, he's the Chief Bank Inspector for the Taxpayers of Canada. He just gave a speech, and he did a calculation. He said the majority of mortgage holders in our country, he figured 56%, are coming up for renewal by the end of 2026. Of concern are variable rate fixed payment mortgages that are going to come up, which means people are underwater on their mortgage. They are thousands of dollars behind. They're not, forget the principal, they're not even keeping up their interest payments. And look out, Routledge has said over and over, when those notes come up for renewal.
Quote, more mortgage consumers are using one type of credit to pay off another. One type of credit to pay off another. Last year, that was 15%, as you mentioned, and this year, 22%. 22%, with 57% saying the reason I missed my mortgage payment was there was a change in my financial situation. Yeah. 40% said an unexpected expense, or third who said it was an accident. Oops, sorry, I missed my mortgage payment. Okay. Remember SDTC, or what became known as the Green Slush Fund, where you had all of these people, these insiders at Sustainable Development Technology Canada, which was basically like a venture capital fund, making investments with taxpayer dollars into early stage, quote unquote, green technology companies that they themselves had a financial stake in. A new report says, what, Tom? I guess it wasn't all bad.
It was A1. This is gold. This is a Department of Industry report, and they call them evaluations. And they say that except for the part about hitting the iceberg, the Titanic was one beautiful ship. when they examined this agency that was disbanded in disgrace, it was literally killed on the same day, last June 4th, that auditors came out and counted 186 conflicts of interest. And the evaluation report concludes they were doing valuable work, air quotes, climate change. So you know they're doing Jesus' work because it was on climate change. And they make no mention of the iceberg and the screaming and the drowning. Absolutely unbelievable.
So next Monday, before the King's speech in the Senate, the House of Commons is going to elect its speaker. The MPs will elect a speaker. Being the Speaker of the House, Tom, you explain it. Why is that such a sweet gig? Why do people want to be the Speaker of the House?
It really is a sweet, sweet job. You get an official secret ballot, by the way.
Yeah.
You get an official residence. You get to wear a cape at work, which I think we'd all enjoy. You get a car and a chauffeur. And there's a very handsome salary. You even can commission your own line of scotch to give away to visiting VIPs. And my personal favorite is, this is off the books, but you pretty much have a private police force at your beck and call. It's called the Parliamentary Protective Service. Remember during the Freedom Convoy, Speaker Tony Rota from North Bay, I guess there was something about the truck drivers that were kind of unnerving him, and he assigned those cops to stand with a gun on their hip outside his condo while he slept at night. No charge. That was all to the charge to the taxpayer.
Now, center block of Parliament Hill, you know, the Peace Tower, that iconic symbol, that's under construction. Did they not used to have a private apartment in there?
They sure did, absolutely. Yeah. That's where they had their wine and scotch tastings. We even had one speaker in the old days who used to shoot rabbits out the window. It was a simpler time. That was.
And imagine, they still have to drag them into that chair. I never quite got that, but that'll be the highlight on Monday. Thank you, Tom Korski. I look forward to your breathless end-to-end live coverage of the King's visit to Canada next week. Not for you, eh? I didn't think so. Okay. We'll speak soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Rob.
Tom Korski from Blacklock's Reporter. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know on News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talk Back. 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. And today, it's the Friday free-for-all. Our favorite day of the week around here because we don't come up with the topics on Fridays, okay? We've been doing that all week long. So today, we leave that heavy lifting up to you. What's on your mind? What do you want to talk about? If you want to talk about something that's been in the news, look, there's always news. So just go for it. If you want to talk about something that you think should be in the news, you feel free to raise that here. We have phone lines for you. We have ears to bend. The call-in line, 1-833-668-2577, 1-833-668-2577. You should save that number in your phone so you can put us on speed dial, 1-833-668-2577. And if you've never called before, just mention that to us, and we'll make your call a priority. We always have topics just on Fridays simply for conversation starters. For example, there is no Canada Post strike. There is no Canada Post strike for now. That is all on hold for now. The Canada Post workers were supposed to and threatening to hit the picket lines this morning, but the two sides, the union, the management, they sat down last night at a meeting, and the union says it's still looking over the latest offer from the management. And while a full-blown strike is not in the cards at Canada Post right now, the union has said Canada Post employees won't be working any overtime. Not going to work any overtime. That's kind of their work action for now. They are in very much a legal strike position and have been for quite some time. But they're not going to work any overtime. Now, I find that interesting, personally, because the recent report from the Mediator brought in to try and bring these sides closer together, chart a path forward for Canada Post, said one of the issues at Canada Post is that you have quite a few workers who are getting paid for an 8-hour shift, but they're not working 8 hours. And something should be done about that. So that leads me to believe, well, if we have all these people at Canada Post and they're not even working 8 hours, how much overtime are they really working? So just how empty is this threat? Well, we're not going to work any overtime. Well, what if you're only working 4 hours a day already? But look, all the same issues with Canada Post. They're still there. I mean, this meeting yesterday really changes nothing. Canada Post is still broke. Canada Post still needed a bailout from the government. Canada Post still needs massive restructuring if it's going to survive. And yet still, the management is offering its employees a nearly 14% raise over the next 4 years, including a 6% raise in the first year. This company, according to the mediator, is effectively insolvent, and yet it's still offering its workforce a 14% raise over the next 4 years. Feel free to weigh in on that. Maybe just that particular angle. You have an expert who says Canada Post is bankrupt, and yet the management of the company, this effectively insolvent company, is offering its workers pay raises? Why exactly? And promising to hire more workers? I would just ask you, people of the real world, where else does this happen? Where else does this happen in the corporate world? Where else, David, where else does this happen? Have you ever heard of anything like this happening? Would this be happening where you work, for the company you work for? If the company you worked for was insolvent, what do you think would be happening if you were working for an insolvent company? Oh, say like the Bay, and still your boss said, "Oh, here's a 6% raise for 1 year, and over the next 4 years you'll get a 14% raise, and your pension is safe, and all your workplace benefits are safe, and you can take more personal days, and we'll make improvements to your short-term disability program." What would you do? What would you do if you were that employee and you're working for an insolvent company and this is what your employer says? We should say, "No, that's not good enough. I'm going on strike." Or, "No, that's not good enough. I refuse to work any overtime, even though I only work 4 hours a day already." Or would you say, "Hey, you know what? That sounds good to me. I'm just happy to be employed." Maybe some of you can help us understand what is helping. Just help us understand what is happening with the management at Canada Post that it would make such a generous offer, given that it is insolvent, and just what is happening with the union, Cup W. Like, what color is the sky in their world? This is a company that had to go to the government back in January and say, "Can we please borrow $1 billion? Because all the money that we used to have, it's all gone." Help us understand this. 1-833-668-2577. One of many topics that we can discuss today on the Friday Free for All Talkback Hour. We follow your lead on Fridays. 1-833-668-2577. And once more, first-time callers, an open invitation to you. We'll bump you up the line. Your calls are next. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.
No.
One free line available. It's yours if you want it at 1-833-668-2577, but you better move fast. It's the Friday Free for All Talkback. Brent is up first today in Listowel, Ontario. Hello, Brent.
Hi.
Hi, Brent. What's on your mind?
A couple questions to try and maybe you can answer them. I don't know.
Better at asking questions than answering them, but go ahead.
Do you know, or can you find out for me, what is the ratio between union workers and management in Canada Post? Is my one question.
Well, I would say it's probably, I believe there are probably 4 unionized workers for every non-unionized worker. And I suppose the managers would not be part of the union, right?
Well, no.
No? Yeah.
No.
Because Canada Post has 55,000 employees, and when they went on strike in November, 44,000 of them went on strike.
Okay, well, that makes sense.
Okay.
That helps me understand the situation a bit.
That's my guess, anyway.
And I'm sitting here because in my past career, I went through similar situations.
Okay.
I was an employee that was unionized, and we went through similar situations, but the company was never bankrupt. And I just don't understand the union here not realizing that if they end up, if our government decides to blow them away, none of them will have a job.
Well, this is it. See, if I was a rank and file worker, if I was a rank and file union member, someone working hard at Canada Post, and just knowing the financial situation of the corporation, and they were coming to me and said 6% raise in the first year, 14% over 4 years, and some benefits are improved and most of them stay the same. Like, I'm jumping on that. I'm calling my union rep and I'm saying, you better darn well accept this.
Me too.
Right? Yeah. Now, the union, according to David, my producer, the union says the worker to management ratio is 10-1. But that's the union saying that. So who knows what the real figure is. But that's what the union
and
says.
it would be nice to know, because the outfit I worked for, it was 3-1 in management compared to the workers.
Right. But I guess what I want to get at here, there are two sides to this. Like, this company is this company is bust.
Well,
this company is bust. It had to borrow money from the taxpayers, $1 billion, just to keep the lights on. What is it doing offering 6% raises?
Exactly.
It hasn't even done a round of layoffs.
So, yeah, exactly.
Right.
Like, I agree with all of this. There's some bullheaded people at the top of that union. I'm not sure that the union leaders are really looking after doing the right thing.
But is this the management's point of view? Like, we could just keep going the way we're going, and nobody's going to lose a job, and everybody's going to get a raise, and nothing has to change with benefits? Because that's kind of pie in the sky thinking as well. All right, Brent, thank you. Yeah, you're thinking there. Bailey up next in Calgary today. Hello, Bailey.
Hi, Bailey. Hi there. I just had a quick question for you, actually.
Everybody wants to ask me questions. Okay.
Yeah. More of a question about, in the event that this doesn't get solved, is anybody talking about alternatives? So there's, like, you had that great point about if this was a private business, and they would obviously not have the option to offer raises because the money just doesn't work out. But in this case, if they're just not making a go of it, are they ever looking into another company taking over? Or, we're always talking about restructuring and, hiring different management to hopefully run the business better. But is there other things that they're considering? I guess that's my question.
Well, the immediate concern would be, I think, for the government would be trying to resolve the work stoppage, because it will damage the economy. That is what would preoccupy, especially the longer it goes. That's what would preoccupy, say, the next few weeks of Parliament, which is only going to sit. Parliament goes on its summer break less than a month from now.
Right.
So,
yeah. I guess
the question is, the question is, what is Canada Post going to look like 2025 and beyond? Because can it really look like this?
Right. And I'm thinking about how it's going to impact. We run a business, and it had a severe impact on our business when they had the last shutdown. So if that's going to be something that's coming up all the time about wages and everything like that, and I just don't see any really good solutions at this point. When do they look at alternatives other than Canada Post? Like, is there somebody that can run it better than they can? And maybe it's somebody else that's private. And I had never heard of anybody having that discussion.
Because, this is a Crown corporation. Other Crown corporations have been privatized before.
Right. I guess we got a little bit of an example here, too.
Air Canada, CP Rail, or CN Rail,
right.
pardon me, were crown corporations. They were privatized.
Right. And
do we have to explore? Do we explore the same kind of thing with Canada Post?
Exactly. And we had a good example where we live as well. There was some campgrounds that were being run by the government, and they weren't doing very well, and they were actually going in debt because of them, and it was handed over to a private corporation, and found out why that was happening. It was just overspending and staffing and
sure.
Just quite obvious things that were happening, and they're quite successful now. So I see it being similar to what's happening with Canada Post. Anyways, thanks for answering my question. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, Bailey. And we'll see what happens. There's no strike right now. Just not going to work overtime. That's the only kind of job action right now for the members of Cup W. I just find it amazing that the company's offering a 6% raise in the first year at all, just given the financial state of things for this company. We'll stop here. Be right back. More of your calls. 2 lines available. It's the Friday Free for All Talk Back. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.
Hello. 1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Okay, so we have some free lines available there. The phone lines were jammed, and then they emptied. I'm not sure what happened there. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. Again, it's the Friday free-for-all. So we're wide open on topics today. I mean, we have some topics that we could talk about, but we'd rather hear from you. Just follow your lead. Find out what is on your mind. There's always news happening. Doesn't even have to be about a news story. Next week, David, big to-do in our part of the country, in the nation's capital, in Ottawa.
Oh, yes.
The King is coming to town.
It's very exciting.
And he's bringing the Queen.
Yes, he is.
King Charles III and Queen Camilla. They'll be here to open Parliament on Tuesday. We'll be getting our own version of the King's speech. He's going to deliver the speech from the throne. That happens in the Senate, by the way. It doesn't happen in the House of Commons. Those MPs are just they're just commoners after all.
Yes, that's right.
So they do it in the Senate. But look, he's going to get the full royal treatment. They both get the full royal treatment for the Royal Highnesses, full military honors, royal salute, 100-person honor guard, inspection of the guard, 21-gun salute. And it's a big deal. It is a big deal. This is something that hasn't happened in this country since 1977, when the late Queen Elizabeth II was here as part of her Silver Jubilee tour of Canada. She also did the same thing back in 1957. And I mean, it's going to be all over the news networks. It's like end-to-end, minute-by-minute coverage on all the news networks. And some people might say, well, this is cool. This is cool. This is history. This is Canada. This is Canadian symbolism, and it's a big message to Donald Trump that we are not American, we are Canadian, we are a constitutional monarchy, and here is our head of state, and take that, Donald Trump, and elbows up and all that stuff. That's what some people might say. Others might say, what is this all about? What is this all about? Why do we even do this anymore? Why are we celebrating? Whatever. The ultimate symbol of colonialism, some people might say. Why do we have this archaic institution based on hereditary status? Why do we spend all of this money on all of these things tied to this institution, the British monarchy, at all? Nearly $60 million a year, Dave, according to some estimates. Okay, $60 million a year. Wouldn't you love to know the bill for this visit? I mean, what is all of this going to cost the taxpayers? All the pomp and circumstance and security. Get rid of it, some will say. Not me, but some will say that. It's outdated, it's irrelevant, it's expensive, it's undemocratic. Pick your reason, and let's become a republic with our own domestically elected or appointed head of state. And that debate is going to happen next week, because it happens whenever a Windsor visits Canada. So if you are up for it, we can get a jump start on this today. we're open to having this debate today, right here, right now. The future of the monarchy for Canada. Just where do you come down on that? Or we can debate and discuss whatever happens to be on your mind, because that's kind of how we roll during a Friday free-for-all. I'm Rob Snow. We're back after the latest breaking news with more of your calls. We have 3 lines available there now. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. Join us and help us get us into the weekend. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
We are open line, open topic today. We have a couple of topics for you to discuss, but we're more than open to going wherever you want to take us today. At 1-833-668-2577. Friday free-for-all Talk Back to Cambridge, Ontario. Dallas is on the line. Hi, Dallas.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
How are you today?
I'm good. What's on your mind?
Well, first of all, I have 2, but first of all, I want to talk about the Canada Post thing.
Yeah.
A couple of the other callers made the point that, when their company was floundering, they weren't standing up, waving their hands, asking for raises, were they?
No.
The problem with Canada Post is that it's a government agency, and these people think that, they have a certain sense of entitlement, I guess.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
Okay. Okay.
I don't get me wrong. I understand the whole process of get what you can, but when the company is actually telling you that they're $1 billion in debt and et cetera, you don't stand there and stick your hand out and want more,
Right, but again, I'm not just talking about the union and its demands and, the workers and their demands. It's about also what the company is offering. And is this a company that's really in any position to be offering what it's offering right now?
I agree with you 100% right there. I agree with you 100% because, and again, it kind of boils down to that it's a government entity, and we got to keep it running. Let's face it, Canada Post, same as the U.S. Postal Service, they're dinosaurs, and they need to be seriously revamped, one way or the other. Whether the union likes it or not, and whether management likes it or not, there's got to be some serious changes go on there in order to make it more efficient, and so we still get our mail every day. We can't just keep pouring money into this thing. That's the way I look at that.
Okay. And you had something else on your mind?
Yes.
So you had 2 things you wanted to talk about?
You just started the topic about the royalty coming over
to
hand Mr.
A royal
Carney
visit
a golden key or some damn thing. I don't know, but
and read the speech from the throne. Yeah.
I'm sorry, but
yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, yes, I have always not really looked up to the monarchy, but I've always kind of stuck toward the monarchy thing.
Okay.
I don't know if I necessarily agree with it anymore because, again, it's another dinosaur.
Another dinosaur. Okay.
Well, to a point. I mean,
right.
I understand that, yes, they basically ruled half the world at one point, maybe 300 years ago or whatever it was. But at the end of the day, that part of it is, as far as I'm concerned, is long past.
Okay.
And again, I kind of watched.
So if there was some kind of full-blown debate, discussion, even exploration about, okay, let's sever these ties, and we won't have a king of Canada anymore. We'll have a domestic head of state. Okay, not a member of the royal family in the United Kingdom. You might say that's worth looking at. See where it goes.
Well,
yes. Okay.
You know what?
Yeah.
I thought that's basically what had happened when Pierre Trudeau brought the Constitution home. Theoretically, it was. That's what it was supposed to mean. But we never severed the ties. I don't want a king. I don't want a queen. I want a government that's able to do what they want without having the answer to some other government.
Right. Even if it is pure, I mean, it's purely symbolic, right? It's purely symbolic. But even then.
Yes, at
okay.
This point,
all right.
Basically,
all right, Dallas. I got you. I understand what you're saying. Time to get rid of the dinosaurs. I think there's a theme through your call today. Thank you. Greg is up next on line 2,
Hello.
calling from Calgary today. Hi, Greg.
Hi. Hey, Rob.
Hi, Greg.
I love your show. First-time caller.
Well, I appreciate that. What took you so long?
Hey,
no, just kidding.
I've just got a quick anecdote about a dear old friend of mine that worked for Canada Post, or works.
Yes.
Still, as far as I know.
Okay.
He was a carrier.
Yeah.
And I went to school with him back in the 80s, and I hooked up with him again. Well, no, that's not the word I want, I guess, nowadays. Called him again, and he's working and living in Edmonton, and he said, "Yeah, come on up and meet, and let's hang out." So he says, "Meet me at this bar at around noon for lunch." And I was, okay, I drove up.
Right.
And I walk into this bar, and this whole place is, well, it's a restaurant bar, right? Like a
Yeah.
and
Like a
and
pub
the whole
kind of thing.
place is full of guys wearing blue pants and blue shirts, and we're sitting there for, I don't know, half hour, 45 minutes, and then this countdown starts. And I look at my watch, and it's almost 1:00, and then 1:00 comes, and everyone in the bar holds up their beer and says, "Quitting time." I'm not kidding, man.
1:00 in the afternoon. 1:00 in the afternoon.
Yeah, 1 in the afternoon.
Yeah. And now the union is saying,
for an hour. So.
But you see, this was what gets me. This is what gets me, because the union releases this, harshly worded statement. We're looking over every line of this offer from Canada Post, and until we make up our minds on it, we're not working any overtime.
Oh yeah, I never thought of it that way, but
yeah,
I mean,
that's their big threat right now. They're not going to work overtime. Yeah. But 1:00 was quitting time for your buddy in Edmonton, though.
Oh yeah, and everyone had already been there for 45 minutes. So that was the kicker for me, man. I was just like,
that's great, Greg. That's great, Greg.
Working,
Yeah,
I was working.
Love your call. Love your call. Call back sometime when you have another great story like that.
One more.
Love to hear.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
I'll do that, Rob. Thanks again, buddy.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You too. Bye-bye, Greg. Stop here, Dave? Yeah, let's stop here. 3 lines available there for you on the Friday Free-for-All Talkback, 1-833-668-2577 to join the discussion or start a new one on the Friday Free-for-All on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Yep, you can join the discussion on the Friday Free-for-All Talkback at 1-833-668-2577. 1, 2, 3 lines available there. Noah up next. Hi, Noah. You're on the air.
Hey, Rob. How are you?
I'm good, Noah. How are you?
I'm not too bad. So I just
great
called
to hear.
today because I recently just heard that Carney sent over $500 billion to help rebuild Ukraine. And I'm a little confused as to why you would do that when there's communities in Canada, native reserves, that have, not clean water or no power running to them. And I don't really see the justification of sending $500 billion over to the country when we can't even support our own people.
Well, I highly doubt the accuracy of what you're hearing, sir. I don't think we have committed to sending $500 billion to Ukraine in the first place.
Oh, well, I must be mistaken. Then apologies on that then.
Yeah. I mean, $500 billion is an enormous sum of money.
Yeah, that's why I was
you know.
pretty upset about hearing over that.
Well, I can imagine so, but that would be like almost the entire budget for the government of Canada for an entire year.
Oh man, I was really misinformed. Apologies then.
Yeah. I haven't seen anything about that story. $500 billion. I don't know where this figure comes from, and I don't even know if Parliament has even the authority to. The government just can't say, well, we're going to spend $500 billion to send it to Ukraine without presenting something to Parliament.
Yeah, they were.
Right, the government can't spend $1 unless the Parliament says you can spend that dollar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
I believe. No, David's been doing some digging into this for us. Whenever something like this comes up, David's very quick on the fact checking. Our trusty producer here, David Smith. The estimate is, according to the Minister of Finance of Canada, is that it will take $500 billion to rebuild Ukraine. Not that we're going to spend $500 billion and give it to Ukraine. But that is the estimate of what it will cost to rebuild that war-torn country, if ever that war comes to an end. That's where that figure is coming from.
Interesting. Okay. Well, that makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah. Because I would be digging into that too. I didn't see that headline. Okay. And maybe, how things can get twisted in the social media age. Right.
Yeah, 100%.
People read a headline and the next thing you know, it's on Twitter and people are saying, oh, we're going to spend $500 billion in Ukraine. Well, hold your horses here. Let's dig into this a little bit more. Let's find out exactly what was said and how much is being actually committed. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm a young lad, Rob. I'm a drywall.
Oh, sure. I appreciate it. Which doesn't mean, it may not be a worthwhile effort to review, well, what is Canada committed to spend in other countries? I mean, certainly that was the topic of conversation during the election campaign. How much should we be spending in foreign aid, for example?
I personally believe that we should cut down in that because as prices have gone up in housing, and statistically, I believe it said that I will be buying or be able to afford it to buy a house when I'm 65 or 70, and I think that's just mind-boggling.
Yeah. So, I understand this. Some people are questioning, should we spend as much as we do on foreign aid? We spend Canadian taxpayers because Canada's a wealthy country and wants to do good all over the world. It has a foreign aid budget, and it's about $8.5 billion a year. Okay. And in recent times, because of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, the single largest recipient of foreign aid has been Ukraine. Been about $2 billion.
Okay.
A year. Right.
$2 billion a year?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I appreciate your time, Rob. I was just calling in to put my 2 cents in.
But it adds up, right? It's $20 billion since, 2022. $20 billion since 2020. Yeah.
Holy.
Yeah. So
I didn't even know
in the last 3 years. Yeah. I have a list. I can run it down for you as we make our way through the program. What we spend on foreign aid and where it goes. It would be shocking to a lot of people, I think. But thank you. Well, but that's where that number came from. That is an estimate of what it would cost to rebuild Ukraine. $500 billion. Not what we're going to spend doing it, but we'll do our share, I'm sure. Thank you for your call. We'll be right back. It's the Talkback Friday Free-for-All edition. So have your say on whatever's on your mind, and we'll try to follow along and clear things up if we can. We're trying to do a lot of that today as well. I'm Rob Snow. It's News Radio. Let's go to Wade up next in Sylvan Lake. Hi, Wade.
Rob, how are you?
Yeah, good.
Hey, I found it very coincidental that you brought up the Canada Pension Plan Investment Board on your show this morning.
Why is that?
Well, I held an event here last night in Sylvan Lake. There was about 300 people showed up, and the Alberta Prosperity Project was there, and
Okay.
Take Back Alberta and a few others like that.
All your
But
separatist buddies.
I did ask how many people in the room were familiar with Canada Pension Plan. Of course, a bunch of hands went up. And then I asked how many were familiar with the Canada Pension Plan Investment Board, and not many hands went up. So I had done some research, and I come to find out that the members of the board are appointed for 3-year terms by the Deputy Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance in quotation marks, consultation with the provinces. And so they claim that they're an arm's length away from the government. But if Chrystia Freeland, who was the Deputy Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance up until 2024, if she was the one that appointed the members to the board, how the heck could that be an arm's length? And so there's 12 positions on the board. 2 of them are vacant currently. And out of the 10 directors that are on the board, 3 are from Ontario, 2 are from the United Kingdom, 1 from the United States, 1 from Newfoundland and Labrador, 1 from Vancouver, 1 from Manitoba, and 1 from Alberta. And, I asked the question, where do you suppose Alberta's historically and conservatively estimated $3 billion per year of over-contribution to the CPP goes? Right to the Canada Pension Plan Investment Board. And so, which deploys those assets in the market to, make returns to fund everybody's retirement, including the retirement of Albertans, right? Oh, yeah, true enough. Except when those numbers that you just said this morning about the upper echelon that I had no idea about because I can't dig that deep. Well, no, seriously. I can't. I can only go so far down a rabbit hole.
Okay.
But when you
my only point with that is this is the upper food chain. The Canada Pension Plan Investment Board would say we need to pay these people, say this much. The CEO $6.5 million a year, because if we don't, the Royal Bank will, or the Ontario Teachers Pension Plan will, or the Caisse de Dépôt will, or what's the big one in Alberta? So
I'm not sure.
Right. That they're,
So did you say that fella got a 24% raise?
24% raise, yeah, based on performance.
And as the Canada Pension Plan gets all these wonderful returns, like I'm collecting my Canada Pension Plan right now, the amount that I'm collecting, it never goes up depending on how good the investments do. So the investments do good, and what the top echelon just takes the bulk, or what?
Well, the contributions, like if you're collecting your pension plan now, the contributions that you're getting, the funds that you're collecting right now from the Canada Pension Plan are basically from the contributions that are being made today by the workers of today. It's not like there's some fund set aside that says this is Wade's share of the Canada Pension Plan. That's not really how it works. Thank you, though, Wade. Good to hear from you. But still a hot issue out there, I guess, in Alberta. Should Albertans continue to be part of the Canada Pension Plan? How would that work if Alberta separated? What would happen to its share of the funds within the pool of funds for the CPP?
It's time to talk back
on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now
and have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Yeah, welcome to hour number 2 of Talkback. It's the Friday free-for-all Talkback, so wide open on topics today. Whatever's on your mind, a news story or something else, we'll follow your lead. Let's go to and get things underway for hour number 2 to Red Deer today, and Conrad up next here on News Radio. Hi, Conrad.
Hey, Rob. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good as well. Hey, I just
That's
wanted
good.
to talk about with unions, the wage difference between, let's say, lower wages, middle wages, and higher wages, and what the division would be, or percentage of employees in each of those positions. Because I'm a union member, and I find, this will be my third. So we vote every 4 years. This will be my third vote coming in July, and I find that there's not a lot of lower wage employees. There's a lot of middle waged employees, and the division in the wage gap between the higher waged employees and the middle waged isn't there. So I always see that people vote for a higher percent or an increase on their wage, which I understand due to inflation. But at the same time, I don't understand why there isn't a lot of, I guess, merit based positions inside unions.
Okay. Well, I guess it would be more seniority driven, right?
And that's the thing. So somebody, say, for example, doing one position who's been there 15 years, and then somebody who starts, say they've been there 2 years, whether they're doing the same position, they're getting the same wage, right? So you can't give somebody a wage or an increase or a raise based off of merit. So I'm just curious, like what in Canada Post, what the division would be or percentages of these middle wage people, and should they be more lower waged, just kind of spread the money and make it.
I'm not sure. I mean, I had an email from someone this week who's obviously kind of deep into Canada Post and the union situation at Canada Post, very much like solidarity kind of thing at Canada Post, was saying that one of the frustrations right now is that the starting wage is about $22 an hour, and to move up to like the upper echelons of the wage brackets in Canada Post takes something like 7 to 10 years. And that's one of the frustrating things. Yeah.
Right.
I think it takes too long to kind of climb the ladder, I guess.
Sure. So it'd be almost the opposite of where it's at. Like for where I'm at, it almost seems like there's a lot of people making good money, and we don't really keep guys at a lower wage for very long. And it kind of upsets the structure of the guys who are,
have been there a while, because they're like, I've been here 15 years and this guy's only been here 2 years and he's making as much money as I am.
Right.
So, yeah.
I was just thinking that, how come they never vote for more wage gaps with inside positions, maybe, or different, opportunities to do different jobs. Man, maybe there isn't a lot to do in Canada Post. Maybe it's
right. I guess, just given the current state of things and the financial position of Canada Post, the questions I'm asking today is, like, if I was a worker at Canada Post, knowing how bleak things are at that place, and my employer came to me and said, we're going to give you a 14% raise over the next 4 years, 6% in the first year. Am I kicking up a big fuss about that? Or am I like, yeah, sounds pretty good. Inflation's at 1.7%. You're giving me a raise above the rate of inflation every 4 years of this contract. I'll take it.
Well, and see, 4 years ago, we got 10% across 4 years. So it went up, 3% or 4%, I believe, the first year. And everybody had a smile on their face.
I bet.
So I do think that 13% or 14% is pretty good.
Okay. Thank you for your call. Good to hear from you in Red Deer today. 1-833-668-2577. 2 lines available there for you on the Friday Free for All Talkback. In Cambridge, Ontario, Bill is on the line. Hi, Bill.
You were just a little comment. You were talking about the king and queen coming over and the cost. We got a wannabe king, convicted wannabe king, and queen coming over in June. Nobody seems concerned about that. That's about all. Thank you.
Okay. What do you, is he gone? Are you there? Okay. I guess I didn't even understand a word that man said. But look, I mean, with Charles and Camilla coming to Canada next week, I mean, they arrive on Monday. This is one of the things that's out there. There's going to be a huge news story next week. We thought we'd kind of get the conversation going today and ask you just, what are your feelings on the British monarchy in the year 2025 in the Canadian context? How do you feel about the fact that King Charles III is our king. He is the king of Canada. He is our head of state. When you consider just the very idea of that, what do you think about that? It is such an age-old debate in Canada, but worth having again. It will be had certainly starting next week when the royal couple arrive. I'm sort of agnostic on the whole thing myself. I have no strong feelings one way or the other. I'm not what you might call a hardcore monarchist, nor am I what could be considered a Republican, not in the American sense, but in the anti-monarchist sense. But if you have any strong opinions one way or another, feel free to share them around here. I mean, the king is coming to Canada, and we've been told in the run-up to this visit that it's all being done to send a message to Donald Trump. And, that message is hands off Canada, elbows up, okay? And here we have one of the most powerful symbols of the Canadian state, the crown, sitting on a throne in the upper chamber of the Canadian Parliament to deliver a speech. Prime Minister Carney extended this invitation. His Majesty accepted. And I mean, next week, you just wait for it. End-to-end, breathless coverage, every minute of it all over your television screen. If you want to weigh in on that or anything else, do so now on the Friday Free for All Talkback here on News Radio. To Bill on the line from Calgary. Hi, Bill.
How's it going, Rob?
Good. What's up?
Good. I'm excited to have the king come. Believe it or not, I'm a monarchist at heart. I don't know why. Okay. They're the reason. Well, I don't know why. They're the reason my family doesn't live in Scotland anymore. But anyway, I'm looking forward to the throne speech. And honestly, Rob, I think it's going to be kind of funny because if I'm not mistaken, the throne speech is also a confidence vote, right?
Well, there will be votes in the House of Commons later on the speech from the throne. Yeah.
Right. So technically speaking, that could be the death knell of the Liberal Party, and we could be in a new election cycle.
Well, technically
that
speaking,
would be kind of funny.
Yeah, you're dreaming in Technicolor if you think there's going to be an election anytime soon. Nobody's up for an election right now.
I don't think the NDP have the money for it. That's for sure.
No, the NDP doesn't want to do it. The Bloc doesn't want to do it. I don't even think the Conservatives want to do it. I think the Conservatives want to they're still trying to figure out what the heck just happened.
Well, that's true. But accidents happen, right? Look at Joe Clark.
Well, that can happen too, if you have inexperienced people in there. And I mean, there have been some liberal columnists of late saying when it comes to Carney right now, it's kind of chaos in that office right now. Like, you can't find anybody who wants to be the chief of staff. They're just sort of making it up right now.
I sort of find that kind of interesting because I would have thought that, Katie Telford had a death grip on that job, but whatever. Anyway, I'm just looking forward to it because, if an accident happens, it would be kind of humiliating for Carney if that happened, that's for sure. I mean,
it sure would be.
The throne speech, that'd be hilarious. But anyway,
it would be.
So that's my long shot bet for the throne speech.
Okay.
Anyway, you have a good weekend, Rob.
Have a dream. Go buy a lottery ticket. You might have better odds. That was Bill. Who's up next? In Kitchener, Ontario, Sarah. Hi, Sarah.
Hello.
Hi, Sarah. How are you?
Very good. I was just calling in regards to the Canada Post strike.
Yeah. What about it?
Yeah, so I just kind of feel like, running a business, right? So if your business isn't doing well, then you should branch out into other aspects of it. So the way that I see it, if I owned Canada Post, is I would drop back the mail. I don't think everybody needs the mail every day. I think if you drop back the mail to deliveries once a week would be great. And then open up another department. I mean, everybody knows that parcels are huge and everyone's trying to get parcel delivery. They could do a 24-hour parcel delivery, including weekends, and just kind of have people working on the weekends and during the week, and you can do 24-hour a day parcel delivery, and they can make a small fortune on that.
Yeah, but the problem, that's not what the union wants Canada Post to do when it says, we should be branching out into other businesses and trying to, expand our business. They have all sorts of other ideas. They want, for example, the post office to be a bank. You go into, especially in, say, smaller towns, rural communities where you have these rural post offices in communities where they've lost their local bank branch. They're saying, well, maybe we should have the post office offer, banking services, to have more choice in retail banking. That's, another thing.
Banking services.
Postal banking, they call it. Postal banking.
Yeah,
well, they do it in other countries.
It's another business, but I don't understand why they don't do a parcel delivery neither. Like, they're obviously going through hardships. I mean, how much can you make off a 35-cent stamp, right? Okay, it's not 35 cents anymore, but really,
whatever it is.
You know what I mean? Whatever it is, you need to make money, which is understandable, but
this is what the management is saying. We have to really focus on the parcel side. It's the only thing that's keeping us afloat, along with junk mail. We have to focus on parcels, and we have to be delivering it 7 days a week, and we have to be able to hire part-time workers at lower wages, because we can't compete right now with the same sort of overhead that all our competitors are using, right? We're not in unions and don't have to pay these pension obligations and don't have to pay these healthcare obligations and everything else.
Well, you're a union, so you do have to pay that, but they can hire some more part-time people, and then after you get so many hours in, then you automatically get into a union, because you can't have part-timers there for 100 years, right? So you can hire part-timers after so many hours, then you get an opportunity at a full-time job.
Okay.
Which would make sense to me.
Yeah, you are making sense. But the union is pitching all kinds of ideas. I mean, they've been pitching this postal banking thing. They're saying, well, we could have a senior check-in as part of a side business at Canada Post. They're saying, a lot of workers are doing this informally already. They check in with seniors already from time to time, just casually. So they think that they could somehow turn that into a revenue opportunity, partner with a local health agency, or I don't know, sign up for some kind of subscription service. Maybe.
That's kind of weird. I think they got to stick to what they do in this parcel.
Well, that's what the mediator said. They also said, we have all of this real estate. Why don't we rent it out? We could have community hubs at the post office. Community events could be held at the post office. What the mediator said is, you're the post office. You have no expertise in any of these areas. Focus on your core business instead of thinking about getting into new lines of business. Your business is delivering mail and parcels to addresses in Canada. You're losing money on that. Try to fix that first before you get into banking or seniors check-ins or renting out real estate. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good to hear from you today. Sarah in Kitchener. Be right back on Talkback. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio. David, how much is a stamp these days anyway?
Well, if you can believe it. If you can believe it, one singular stamp will cost you $1.44.
$1.44. Wow. Okay.
It's outrageous. That's why nobody can afford houses. They're spending all their money on stamps.
Stampflation. Yeah. It's because of stamp. And how, like the last time they increased the price of a stamp, how much should it go up?
By 29 cents, Rob. Last year alone.
29 cents or 29%?
29 cents from $1.15 to $1.45.
Okay. All right. Wow. Okay. All right. Let's go to Al is in Alberta. Hello, Al.
Hello.
Hi, Al. What's on your mind?
The $1.44 for the stamp is not a big deal if they get the envelope there. I have a couple of arguments with the Postal Service and the fact that if I'm a small business in Calgary and I mail you an envelope with an invoice or something in downtown Calgary, the envelope has to go from my postal station, which is a block from my office, to Red Deer to the sorting plant and back, and it absolutely takes at least 5 days, and most of the time it's 6 or 7. It's just the way the system is set up, and of course, while that thing is going through the system, it's costing the Postal Service money. I don't care who touches it or how long they hold it. Anyway, going back to what I called about was the monarchy. I love it.
You love it.
Nothing wrong with keeping our monarchy. because
Okay.
take a look across that, that line that was drawn across the continent, and it was just drawn
Right.
by some guy. Look at
Yeah.
the guy who's talking about that drawn line. He
Okay.
runs that? Come on.
Right. Right.
Give me the monarchy all day long.
Oh, really? Okay.
Love your show. Talk to you later.
Well, thank you so much. It's interesting that you mentioned that. If you were mailing something across town in Calgary, it goes to Red Deer first to the sorting facility and then back to the address that you're mailing it to in Calgary. There's a similar situation in Ottawa. I would mail stuff when I was living in Ottawa across town. David, it would go to Montreal first. It would go to Montreal first.
Seems inefficient.
It's just, why would they do that? Linda, you're on the air, Linda. Hi, Linda.
Hello.
Hi, Linda.
How are you?
Good, Linda. Always good.
That's good. My comment about the royalty coming to visit, well, I think that's more of a Carney patting himself on the back. I'm not really in favor of the monarchy anymore. I think it's more cost to us than, it's just like a figurehead coming to visit. Yeah, I'm not impressed with that. And personally, I haven't been impressed with that couple for a long time. Yeah, so no, I don't believe it's going to help. And I don't think it has anything to do about showing that we're a united Canada or hands-off sort of thing. I think it's more.
Would you feel different if it was Queen Elizabeth and Philip, back in the old days?
Back then it was because, Queen Elizabeth and Philip at that time, they earned it.
They earned it. Okay.
I think that they earned it, and we had our respect. We still had Union Jack. We were still really connected. I don't think we're really connected anymore. We've got our own flag. We're done. I think we should be like some of the other ones and say, well, we're not a colony anymore, so we don't have that tie anymore.
Okay.
Give us more respect as a country.
I see. All right.
Okay.
Fair opinion. Fair opinion.
Yeah.
I think one we're going to hear a lot next week when this 2-day royal visit happens and the speech from the throne on Tuesday. Thank you. Thank you. Be right back with more of your calls. Friday Free for All Talkback. I'm Rob Snow. It's News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
And down the stretch we come on the Friday Free for All Talkback, wide open on topics today. And lots of time to hear your opinion on anything that may be on your mind today. We'd love to hear from you. 1-833-668-2577. Catherine in Waterloo. Hello, Catherine.
Hi, Rob.
Hi.
Enjoy your show.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yesterday, you had, you were asking
Healthcare. We were talking about
healthcare.
yesterday.
Yes. Questions about healthcare. Well, I can tell you my story. I was in quite a bit of pain with my knees, and I went to my family doctor. We have a family doctor, and I said, I'd like some kind of surgery on my knees, and he said, no, you're too young. I was 61 at the time. I said, well, can I just go and see a specialist? He never responded.
Wow.
Yeah, and so I went around him, asked the girlfriend, where did she go? And she gave me the doctor's name and phone number, and went to see him. He said, and they took X-rays. He couldn't not believe how bad my knees had. It was just bone on bone, no cartilage left.
Oh my gosh. So painful.
But the thing I wonder, well, how old do you have to be? Would I still be waiting? Now I'm 73. Would I still be waiting?
Okay.
Okay.
So has anything been done to help you? Did you get knee surgery or?
Yes, total.
It was
knee
eventually
replacement
resolved.
for both.
Okay.
Eventually.
Oh, good
both.
for you. Okay.
Uh huh.
And how
I'm
long
still
did that
fairly
take?
Active. I take aerobics classes and
Oh,
do
good for you.
The best I can.
Probably in better shape than me. May I ask you how long it took just to go through that whole process? Like, say, from the first time you saw the second doctor to, say, the first time you had your first knee done. How long did that
I
take?
don't think it took long. No.
Okay. Well, that's good.
Yeah.
You don't happen to
I
recall.
can't remember
I mean,
exactly, but
was it a few months or?
it could have been.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. You take care.
But you're all fixed up now. Well, that's good. Good.
Okay,
I'm glad to hear that. Yeah.
Sure.
I'm really glad to hear that. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, we were talking about healthcare yesterday and just struggles that people were having on accessing the healthcare system. It was a pretty busy show on that. A lot of pent up demand on that topic, I guess you could say. Tyson is calling from Lethbridge. You're on the air, Tyson. Hi there.
Hello.
Hi, Tyson. What's on your mind?
I was listening the other day, and we were talking about young people in the workforce and trying to get a job, and I work in the automotive industry, and right now there's not very many young people who are willing to work, is the experience that we've seen.
Okay. So when you say you work in the automotive industry, in what capacity? Like what part of the automotive industry?
I'm a manager at a local repair and tire shop, and it's attached to a car lot.
Okay.
And so we're always looking for a mechanic or a loop technician or somebody who wants to get in. And this is just my experience in the last 2 years. I have hired 5 people under the age of 21.
Right.
And none of them still work here. And most of them didn't even last a month. One of them.
And is that because they moved on their own, or you suggested to them maybe this isn't for you?
Oh no, we're happy to work with people, but no, like one guy leaves in the middle of his shift with a vehicle in the air, texts you 10 minutes later and says, "I'm no longer going to be working here," and then it's like we're not slave drivers or anything either. Like everyone is happy and everyone's good to be there.
Would you say that are you paying competitive wages and these sorts of things?
Oh yeah. Like $5 above minimum wage.
Okay.
And people who, I'm sick again today. Sorry, I have to leave because my, whatever excuse. And I understand everybody has a life. I have a life too, but I still make being at work a priority because I need the money. And I feel like a lot of young people potentially just don't see the, making money and collecting their paycheck is not their number one priority. And I heard what the guy in Calgary said about his restaurant businesses is that coming to work wasn't a high priority for them. And so in return, he couldn't open his doors certain days. And it's the same in my business.
And we took a couple of calls on this, and he said, because there were a lot of questions about the hiring of, say, international students or temporary foreign workers and whatnot. And are they replacing jobs that should go to, say, Canadian young people, for example?
Mm-hmm.
And he's
and that's the thing too.
And he described a situation that you're describing, that the young people that he's hired are, well, either he doesn't get any applications or the young people just aren't like motivated to work or unreliable. Whereas, say, somebody who is here from wherever, India or whatever, they want the job, they need the job, and they'll work hard to get the job and keep the job. So he hires them.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's your experience, but
it is, and all of the people who who 10 or 15 years ago were high schoolers and had these little small minimum wage jobs. Now all those jobs are being picked up by people who need to work.
Who need to
who
work,
have
yeah.
families and who,
Yeah,
and so it's tough. But, one other quick thing I want to say is we you're trying to hire. It's easy, people saying, I've applied for 100 jobs. Well, when you're sitting in front of a computer and you apply for 100 jobs, that's going to be potentially maybe an hour's worth of work. There is times 10 years ago where I was looking for a job where you spent 3, 4, 5 days or 2 days on a weekend at a time, and that's all you did was going and trying to find work. And out of 100 applicants, I see maybe 2 in person, and out of those 100, I see maybe another 2 that have adjusted their resume for my specific job. People will put on their cover letter, I'm looking for a place where I can learn retail business. Well, you can tell that they sent that resume to the clothing shop down the store, but they're also sending it to the mechanic shop. It's like you need to put important information pertaining to that job on your resume, or it's just going to get put in the trash.
Great points all around. Yeah, so informative. Thank you for calling today. Yeah, that's great stuff. Great material. Bye-bye. Rob Snow here, Friday Free for All Talkback with David Smith on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Sheriff in Kitchener, you're on the Friday Free for All Talkback. What's on your mind today? I'm good, thanks. Go ahead.
I want to talk quickly.
Yeah.
I don't think so. We need family doctors.
Don't need family doctors.
I don't know why we have to waste money for the family doctor. The reason I say the family doctors, because everybody can have a list of, those, what do you call this, specialists, and call them and give an appointment. I don't know why we have to waste money to go to family doctor. Then they refer to an urgent care doctor as well can do that. Go to urgent care and they can refer to a specialist. Does that make sense?
Okay. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Too much money for the healthcare, and rich getting richer. Most doctors, they work 2 days a week anyway. I don't know why everybody complaining about family doctors. They do nothing. Most of the time,
they do nothing. I don't know.
Give you Advil and Tylenol. That's it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that's not my understanding of it. But
well, that's my experience.
That's your experience.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I guess the way that I have had it explained to me by the experts in the healthcare field over the years is that your primary care provider or your family doctor, that's like your healthcare quarterback. Okay. They are the ones who know you the best, who know your health situation the best, and they can help you. I mean, they're in part to kind of like navigate this whole healthcare complex. They're at the center of it all. They're calling all the plays. They can refer you here. They can refer you there. If you don't have someone who can do that for you, and you're kind of on the outside looking in, and it can be difficult to get timely access to any kind of healthcare service. And because of the lack of focus on primary care, you have this cascading effect all through the healthcare system, because then more and more people end up in the most expensive care at all, which is the hospital, when we don't need them to be at the hospital, when so many of their needs can be taken care of at the primary care level. All right, that would be my opinion. That's how I would look at it, because I've talked to people a lot smarter than I think you and me both combined, Sharif, on this particular issue. Trisha, up next in Calgary. Hi, Trisha.
Hi, good morning. Long time
good to
listener,
hear from you.
First time
Thank
caller.
You. I appreciate
Hope
that.
You're doing
Thank
well.
You. Good here. Weather could be better.
Yeah, we're getting a little bit of sunshine.
Send it this way, please. Okay.
Absolutely. I just wanted to touch base on this strike and the people that it's going to affect again. Personally, as the caller before me was talking about the healthcare, my husband had a stroke a year ago, and we tried to get him on the old age disability pension because he's 60 this year, and it's paperwork back and forth, and it's paperwork you take to your doctor, and other than the gentleman before me, I'm a 2-week, 3-week to make an appointment with my doctor. So by the time you get the paperwork, you get it into the mail, then you hear back from them that they need more stuff, et cetera, et cetera. So it's going to put us behind, and we were already behind at the Christmas time. So it's what it's affecting, this strike. I'm sure that there's a lot of seniors that perhaps still get checks in the mail.
Yeah.
Just who it's affecting, and if they're
and someone like you waiting for an important notice on an issue like that is you don't want you want something like that expedited. You don't want it delayed at all. So I can appreciate
absolutely.
That. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So that was just I don't have a lot of intelligent conversation on the actual strike itself and on the employees, but they were talking about the money and such, and I've been in my job for over 10 years, and I'm making just 25, and I just think I don't know, are we being selfish? I'm not sure.
Okay, all right. And think of the real world impact on everyday people. Right?
Exactly.
That this is going to have. Yeah, I think that's your message. Yeah. Thank you, Tricia. All the best to you. Be right back and wrap things up with a few more calls here on Talkback. Friday Free for All Talkback on News Radio. Let me just say a few closing words on what is going to be, I think, a major news story next week, David, and that is going to be this royal visit. I mean, you wait for it, this royal visit. And why the current Prime Minister, Mr. Carney, might be doing this. Why is he bringing the King to Canada? I was thinking back this morning to when Stephen Harper was Prime Minister. Stephen Harper was not any kind of Trudeau post-nationalist. Prime Minister Harper, I know this because I've had former ministers in his government tell me this personally, was of the view that grand symbols of Canada, like the crown, are important. Why? Because Canada has become so diverse over the decades. And so many people live in Canada, so many different backgrounds and so many different cultures and faiths. Mr. Harper, and I hope Mr. Carney, but Mr. Harper was of the view that if the country wants to maintain any sort of culture and identity of its own, that these are the kinds of symbols that need to be emphasized. The crown, certainly among them. There was some controversy during the Harper years. You may remember people were mad at Stephen Harper because he ordered that all the Canadian embassies all over the world display the portrait of the Queen at the time. And some people in diplomatic circles were upset about that because portraits of the Queen replaced other works of art that were on display. Or you had Quebec Francophones were upset because Quebec Francophones do not have a lot of love for the British monarchy for obvious reasons. And next week, the Bloc Québécois will be up to its own tricks and it will be boycotting this whole spectacle of the King and Queen in Canada. And they're not going to have anything to do with the throne speech. They never do. But this was important for former Prime Minister Stephen Harper. He really believed that for the sake of the country's own identity and having a unified identity beyond the idea that we're just not American, it was important to him that symbols like the crown be on display and be celebrated. If that is even part of the motivation for the new Prime Minister, Mark Carney, he may be on the right track. Have yourselves a great weekend. We'll be back on Monday. The very latest breaking news coming up next on News Radio.